Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the AMCHAM Healthcare Innovation Seminar 2020. Before we begin, I would like to kindly remind you to please turn off your cell phones or put them in silent mode. Simultaneous interpretation is being provided for this event. Please tune to channel 1 for English and channel 2 for Korean. Now, to open our program, I would like to invite Mr. James Kim, Chairman and CEO of AMCHAM Korea, to come to the stage to deliver the opening remarks. Please give him a warm welcome.
Good morning. 안녕하세요. Welcome to our 11th annual AMCHAM Healthcare Innovation Seminar. 11th year is a very special year. Of all the seminars in the healthcare space that we did in our history, I think this seminar is probably the most important in our history, especially because of the pandemic that we're all experiencing today. But before we begin, I want to recognize a few very important guests who's either with us in person or virtually. First and foremost, Prime Minister Chung Sye-kyun. He's going to join us via video. Unfortunately, he's not able to be here with us as scheduled, but we're going to miss him here in person greatly. As we all know, Prime Minister Zhang has done an incredible job leading and protecting the country with a pandemic. You should also know that he's been a very close friend of AMCHAM for many, many years. And we're so honored that he would bless us with his participation. I'm also proud to announce that AMCHAM will shortly deliver a special plaque to Prime Minister Zhang, because we want to offer him our sincere gratitude for his leadership throughout this pandemic. Next, and I know a lot of you have met him recently, His Excellency Kim Minseok, Chairman of the Health and Welfare Committee at the National Assembly. His presence alone is a testament to the efforts that the Korean government is willing to make to support the healthcare industry. He is really, really our VIP guest. We need his engagement, we need his leadership. Next, someone very special to all of us, U.S. Ambassador Harry Harris. As you know, Ambassador Harris and his team have done a phenomenal job to ensure that his team is fully engaged with the international business community, especially this year. He's also our honorary chairman, and he's done an amazing job as the U.S. ambassador in Korea. This year, the topic is called Healthcare in the Post-COVID Era, Fostering Smart Medical Innovation. The COVID-19 pandemic is what we call a watershed moment for the healthcare industry. The global crisis triggered a truly global response, and we have seen amazing results. I'm in constant contact with a couple of our board members, Mr. David Oh, who is the CEO of Pfizer Korea, Francis Van Paris, who's the Asia head of Sativa. These two gentlemen, they're constantly educating the AMCHAM board on what and how the healthcare industry is doing to support and to help minimize this pandemic. Clearly, we have witnessed immense courage and sacrifice from frontline workers, as well as timely and unprecedented action from government leaders, especially here in Korea. At the same time, we have seen the brightest scientists and researchers working at companies around the world to help us to the next phase with what I call historic speed. In fact, Francis and I just spoke about it, and the speed that everyone is working on to help this pandemic is truly priceless. Obviously, it's been a very difficult and a dark year for all of us, but I'm seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. This incredible innovation has culminated in the development of several vaccines, and I think we're all waiting for it. But now, It's very important for all of us to continue this momentum before we get the vaccine, during, and even after. And now in our 11th year with this healthcare summit, I'm really looking forward to an open and a transparent dialogue on how these very important healthcare industry professionals are transforming this whole pandemic. Today, we have a couple of sessions. In the morning session, there's going to be presentations and a panel discussion on the topic of open innovation amid the COVID pandemic. And in the afternoon, we're going to explore the big data revolution in healthcare. I think that we've all heard the term digital transformation. And the big data revolution in healthcare is very, very similar. So before we begin our session, I want to thank some of our general sponsors. Besides being a sponsor, I'm very honored that David O from Pfizer is one of our board of governors, and he's been an amazing leader, so I'm very thankful. He's going to help us change the dynamics here. Our good friends from Medtronic and VIATRIS, they are our grant sponsors. Some of the gold partners include 3M, led by another board member, Jim Fontesiak. Sativa, as I mentioned before. I've known Francis now for many, many years, and he continues to do really, really amazing things. Illumina and Janssen. These are the companies that have been very, very helpful for all of us. And lastly, I want to thank the AMCHAM co-chairs of the Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices Committee for helping us lead this important seminar. In fact, you should all know that the AMCHAM Healthcare Innovation Seminar is our second largest event in AMCHAM's annual slate of regular events. So again, I want to thank you all for being here today, despite the pandemic. I look forward to meeting many of you. Thank you so much, and have a good morning.
Thank you, Chairman Kim. As Chairman Kim noted, His Excellency Prime Minister Chung Sye-kyun unfortunately is not able to join us in person this morning due to unavoidable circumstances. Instead, the Prime Minister will be joining us by video to deliver the congratulatory remarks. So please direct your attention to the screen for the Prime Minister's remarks.
존경하는 내외 귀빈 여러분, 온라인으로 참여하고 계신 암참 명예회장 해리 해리슨 주한 미국 대사님을 비롯한 암참 기업인 여러분 반갑습니다. 2020 암참 보건의료혁신 세미나 개최를 진심으로 축하드립니다. 어려운 여건 속에서도 귀한 자리를 준비하시고 영광스럽게 저에게 큰 상도 주신 주한미국 상공회의소 관계자 여러분과 제임스 킴 회장님, 제프리 존스 이사회 의장님 감사드립니다. 코로나19를 반드시 극복하고 대한민국에서 기업하기 좋은 환경을 위해 애써달라는 격려와 당부의 뜻으로 알고 더 열심히 노력하겠습니다. WHO가 코로나 팬데믹을 선언한 지 9개월이 지났습니다. 그동안 전 세계가 코로나19의 확산을 막기 위해 총력을 다해왔지만 아직 보이지 않는 감염병과의 싸움은 멈추지 않았습니다. 최근 추워진 날씨와 함께 코로나19가 다시 빠르게 확산되고 있어 긴장의 끈을 늦출 수 없는 상황입니다. 다행스럽게도 오늘 함께 하고 계신 보건의료산업 전문가들의 노력으로 코로나 백신과 치료제 개발이 빨라질 것이라는 반가운 소식이 전해지고 있습니다. 또한 백신과 치료제 개발을 위해 외국 제약사들이 국내의 병원과 대학의 임상시험과 연구를 의뢰하는 사례도 늘고 있습니다. 한국 정부는 백신과 치료제 개발을 위해 국제협력을 이어가면서 치료제에 대한 국민의 기대에 부응할 수 있도록 가능한 모든 지원을 아끼지 않겠습니다. 나아가 이번 코로나19 대응 과정을 통해 양국의 보건의료 분야 기업과 연구소, 병원과 학계 간의 협력의 폭과 깊이가 더욱 확대되고 심화되기를 기대합니다. 암참 기업인 여러분, 한미 두 나라는 지난 67년 동안 동맹을 이어왔습니다. 민주주의와 시장경제라는 공동의 이념 아래 강력한 안보동맹과 포괄적 동반자 관계를 발전시켜 왔습니다. 코로나 팬데믹도 양국의 우정을 갈라놓지는 못했습니다. 두 나라는 코로나19 발생 초기부터 지금까지 국경을 폐쇄하지 않았습니다. 정부 간 상시 교류는 물론 기업인과 유학생들의 자유로운 이동을 보장하며 양국의 신뢰관계를 유지해왔습니다. 대한민국 정부는 조 바이든 대통령 당선인께서 이끌 차기 미국 행정부와 긴밀한 관계를 유지하면서 우리의 동맹관계를 더욱 굳건히 다져나갈 것입니다. 그동안 양국의 경제협력 증진과 이해의 가교 역할을 해오신 암참 회원사 여러분께서도 적극 도와주시기 바랍니다. 잘 아시는 것처럼 지금 대한민국은 코로나19의 어려운 상황에서도 세계 유수의 신용평가사들로부터 안정적인 신용 등급을 받고 있습니다. 특히 K방역이 세계의 주목을 받으면서 대한민국의 브랜드 가치가 더욱 높아지고 있습니다. 이러한 경쟁력을 더욱 발전시키며 기업인 여러분이 한국에서 더 크게 성공하실 수 있도록 협력을 더욱 강화해 나가겠습니다. 현재의 외국인 투자 인센티브 제도를 더 내실화하겠습니다. 그동안 외국인 기업들이 불편함을 느꼈던 여러 환경에 대해서도 개선 방안을 마련하겠습니다. 얼마 전 주한 암참 이사회에서 한국을 아시아의 비즈니스 허브로 만드는 방안을 논의했다고 들었습니다. 한국 정부는 적극 환영입니다. 그렇게 될 수 있도록 여러분께서 많이 도와주시기 바랍니다. 암참 기업인 여러분의 성공이 곧 대한민국의 성공이라는 것을 저와 대한민국 정부는 잊지 않을 것입니다. 다시 한번 암참 보건의료혁신 세미나 개최를 축하드리며 여러분 한 분 한 분의 사업이 번창하기를 기원합니다. 여러분 새해 복 많이 받으십시오. 감사합니다.
As mentioned, AMCHAM will be delivering the plaque in gratitude to the Prime Minister following today's event. Next, we are honored to be joined by His Excellency Kim Minseok, Chairman of the Health and Welfare Committee of the National Assembly. He will deliver congratulatory remarks. Please give him a warm welcome.
반갑습니다. 오늘 헬스케어 이노베이션이라는 주제로 암참에서 이렇게 세미나 여시는 것을 진심으로 축하드립니다. 이 코로나 팬데믹에 한국이 비교적 선방을 해 왔지만 이제 게임 체인저로서의 치료제와 백신의 이제 등장이 임박한 상황에서 한국도 이제 막바지에 한국적 표현으로는 소위 깔딱고개라고 할 수 있는 이제 그러한 어려움을 겪고 있고 또 전 세계도 치료제와 백신의 등장을 이제 기다리고 있는 이런 국면에서 굉장히 의미가 있는 세미나라고 생각을 합니다. 우선 제가 이 자리에 오니까 기억이 나는 것은 제가 국회에 18년 만에 돌아왔는데 20여 년 전에 제가 초선 의원 시절에 김대중 대통령 시절이고 그때가 IMF 금융위기를 맞이했을 때 외국인 투자, 외국인 기업들의 국내에서의 활동이 굉장히 중요한 이슈가 되었던 때였고 제가 당시에는 경제를 다루던 재정경제위원회 위원이었을 때 제가 아마 한국 국회에서는 처음으로 암참에 아예 가입을 해서 멤버로 이렇게 왔던 기억이 납니다. 그러면서 그때 최초로 congratulatory 리포트로 외국인 투자 기업의 국내에서의 활동에 관한 이러한 규제 혁신 등등에 대한 리포트를 내고 그것을 정책에 반영했던 기억이 납니다. 오늘은 바이오 헬스, 이런 헬스케어 관련한 이노베이션 세미나여서 의미가 있기도 하고 저로서는 또 그때의 추억이 생각나기도 해서 특별한 마음으로 참석했다 하는 말씀을 드립니다. 오늘 주최해 주신 우리 제임스 킴 회장님과 또 제프리 존스 명예회장, 이사회 회장님이시죠? 그러니까 모든 멤버들에게 감사를 드립니다. 우선 오늘뿐만 아니라 이후로 이 암참을 필두로 글로벌 기업들, 특히 뭐 제약 관련한 기업뿐만 아니라 글로벌 기업들과 한국의 관계, 상호 이해가 더욱더 이렇게 높아질 수 있는 계기가 되었으면 좋겠다 하는 생각을 첫째 말씀드립니다. 두 번째로는 한국이 전 세계가 그렇듯이 특히 한국이 IT 이후에 바이오를 새로운 전략 산업으로 설정하고 이렇게 추진해가는 가운데 그런 한국의 바이오 헬스의 성장에 있어서도 이 암참과의 연계성을 강화하는 것이 굉장히 큰 계기가 되었으면 좋겠다 하는 말씀을 드립니다. 세 번째로는 이 한국과 미국의 관계가 이제는 주로 전통적으로 남북 관계에 초점을 맞추던 단계로부터 더 넓어져서 다양한 글로벌 이슈로 나아가고 그 중에서도 보건 관련한 이슈로도 확대가 되는 그러한 중요한 계기에 있기 때문에 그런 점에서도 앞으로 암참에서 많은 관심을 갖고 함께 했으면 좋겠다 하는 말씀을 드립니다. 제가 얼마 전부터 유엔의 피스키핑 포스가 있는데 이제는 헬스키핑 포스를 만들어야 되는 거 아니냐라는 제안을 하고 있습니다. 한국 정부에도 이것을 앞으로 공식적인 제안으로 이제 하자 이런 얘기를 하고 있고 제가 미국에도 그런 제안을 전달하기 시작하고 있습니다. 세상이 바뀌었고 이제는 세상을 바라보는 패러다임이 바뀌었다 이렇게 생각을 합니다. 미국이 WHO에서 탈퇴를 했었지만 이제 또 미국의 새로운 행정부가 등장하면서 이 멀티래터럴리즘에 대한 중시가 다시 시작될 것으로 기대하고 있고 역시 이 팬데믹 이후에 새로운 국제 정치 경제 질서를 재정립하는 데 있어서 미국의 가치에 기반한 그 리더십이 다시 요구되는 그러한 중요한 시기가 아닌가 생각을 합니다. 그런 것을 기대하고 있고 또 그렇게 해서 새롭게 인류가 이런 팬데믹에 대한 성찰을 기초로 새로운 질서를 구축해 가는 데 있어서 한국이 이번 그 K 방역의 성공으로 인해서 나름대로 확보된 새로운 보이스를 기초로 해서 할 수 있는 역할이 있다. 그런 차원에서 한미 관계의 새로운 차원과 지평을 또 생각해 볼 때가 되었다 이렇게 생각을 합니다. 제가 조금 전에 헬스키핑 포스라는 제안을 드렸는데 그러한 것처럼 굉장히 다양한 분야에서 새로운 주제, 새로운 접근이 필요한 시기가 되었다고 생각을 하기 때문에 제가 이 말씀을 드리는 것은 암참이 큰 틀에서 한미 관계의 새로운 차원의 발전을 위해서도 어젠다를 좀 확장할 필요가 있는 것이 아닌가 이런 말씀을 드립니다. 끝으로 현재 제가 이제 보건복지위원장을 맡고 있기 때문에 보건복지위원장을 맡고 있는 동안에 제가 20년 전을 다시 생각하면서 이제 새로운 차원에서 바이오 헬스, 헬스케어 분야에 있어서도 한국 국민에게 있어서나 글로벌 차원에서나 관심이 높아져 있는 이 분야에 있어서 어떻게 한국이 더 성장하고 한국에서 활동하는 각종 글로벌 기업들이 더 잘 이렇게 활동하고 영역을 넓혀갈 수 있는가, 그것이 암참에 속해 있는 기업들에게도 도움이 되고 또 한국 국민에게도 도움이 되고 전체적인 바이오 헬스의 이노베이션에도 도움이 되는 그러한 길을 찾도록 노력하겠다 하는 말씀을 드립니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Next, we will be joined by the Honorable Harry Harris, U.S. Ambassador to the Republic of Korea, who will join us by video to deliver congratulatory remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Prime Minister Chung, Chairman Kim, and the many distinguished guests joining virtually. I want to start by thanking Jim Kim for the invitation to join you today for AMCHAM's annual Healthcare Innovation Seminar. It's a pleasure and an honor. The focus of today's seminar, Fostering Innovative Healthcare in a Post-COVID Era, couldn't be more timely or important. A big congratulations to AMCHAM for hosting this event under these circumstances and keeping seminar participants safe and healthy. As we tackle the so-called third wave of COVID cases here in Korea, I'm confident that the ROK's proven best practices will prevail against this virus once again. South Koreans have become global exemplars of following the rules and following the science, and together we'll get through this. As the United States and South Korea look at ways to grow our economies and improve the lives of our peoples, I know that our two countries will continue to innovate together. I'm confident organizations like AMCHAM will work to improve the regulatory and business environment that supports and rewards innovation for both Korean and American businesses. At a time when innovation, particularly in the field of healthcare, is the order of the day, Korea and the United States will no doubt continue to be pioneers in innovation. As you've all heard, U.S. firms like Pfizer, Moderna, Novavax, and Janssen of Johnson are leading the development and release of a COVID-19 vaccine, and Korean companies are working with U.S. firms to produce vaccines here in the ROK as well. The U.S. government remains committed to leading global efforts to develop safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines to benefit the world. As Secretary Pompeo has said, there is no nation that has been or will be as deeply committed to delivering vaccines all around the world as the United States of America. So there is light at the end of the COVID tunnel. Today, I encourage you to discuss the importance of a regulatory framework that supports innovation and ways Korean and American firms can work together on the important healthcare problems of our day. And to those firms that have pioneered innovative healthcare solutions, I encourage you to celebrate what you've accomplished. Working together, we will get through this. So, in closing, thank you again for the opportunity to speak at today's event and for the hard work you all do to contribute to the strong and enduring U.S.-Korean relationship and alliance. I say this a lot, and it's because I mean it. There isn't a better place to serve as U.S. Ambassador and no better partner and ally for the United States than the Republic of Korea. Thank you very much.
Now we will take a moment to change the setting on the stage for our first session, which is titled Open Innovation Amid the COVID Pandemic. This session will be moderated by Hee-Ju Choi, Senior Advisor of Yulchan LLC. It will be joined by Alex Arabanes, Chief Technology Officer of Illumina, Jenny Zhang, Area Managing Director of Janssen North Asia, Francis Van Paris, Vice President Commercial of Sativa Asia Pacific, as well as by Man Ki-sung, Deputy Director General of Science of the International Vaccine Institute, and Young-Shin Lee, CEO of the Korean Research-Based Pharmaceutical Industry Association.
Good morning. First of all, let me thank AMCHAM for arranging this seminar on a very important topic, namely open innovation amid the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm very privileged to participate in this seminar as a moderator. According to a recent Deloitte survey, the probability of success in developing new drug through open innovation was found to be 3 times higher than in the closed model. The survey targeted 281 pharmaceutical companies from 1988 to 2012 and showed that among the new drugs that were ultimately approved, the success rate of developing new drugs through the closed model was 11%, while the success rate of developing new drugs through open innovation was 34%. As a result, new drugs previously developed through companies' internal R&D have recently been released through open innovation. In recent years, it has become increasingly difficult for companies to continuously invest in innovation as development costs rise and product life cycle shorten. As a result of these two trends, it is becoming increasingly difficult for companies to make their investment in innovation by relying only on internal resources. This is where open innovation comes in. The open innovation model uses external research and development resources to save time and money in the innovation process. So I think open innovation is necessary, maximizing R&D efficiency in pharmaceutical and medical technology. Under the circumstances, I think it is quite appropriate that AMCHAM arranged this seminar on open innovation, and I hope we can obtain a lot of insight from today's seminar. To this end, we invited 3 prominent speakers and 2 panels. Each speaker will give about 20 minutes presentation, and after presentation, I will give about 5 minutes to panels for their view on open invitation and presentation. Firstly, our first speaker is Dr. Alex Arabanes. Dr. Alex Arabanes joined Illumina in June 2020 as a Senior Vice President and Chief Technical Officer. Please welcome him.
Great. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. First off, I'd like to thank AMCHAM for inviting Illumina and myself, giving us the opportunity to participate in this prestigious healthcare innovation seminar. Unfortunately, I couldn't be with you today in person. I look forward to a time in the near future where that's possible. So in the short time that I have with you today, I'd like to tell you about what we're doing in genomics. We're a leader in creating genomic technology. We have an open platform that trusted companies and partners around the world use to get the discoveries they need to develop drugs, to make key diagnostic tests to treat their patients, and we've been at the forefront in the fight against COVID. In particular, we partner with with countries around the world, such as the Korea Big Data Project, with the very ambitious goal of sequencing the human genomes of 1 million Korean citizens. At Illumina, our mission is nothing less than to improve human health by unlocking the power of the human genome. And we do that through our open platform that people build applications on. Some of our focus areas, including accelerating research, apropos to the session chair's comments, we know that drugs that have a genomic target are twice as likely to succeed. Really make sure R&D dollars go farther when you have an underlying biological basis in genomics. Our technology is also being used across many clinical applications. I'll tell you more about this. So it's much more than research now. It's part of routine clinical care. And then we also do a lot on advancing the underlying technology itself, over time dramatically reducing the cost of genome sequencing, improving the scale and the quality. These are some of our focus areas that we work with partners and governments to bring our technology to the benefits of their citizens. One area is in reproductive health. Our technology can be used during pregnancy to understand the health of the unborn child and help achieve better outcomes. For individuals that have rare diseases and companies that are developing drugs to target these rare diseases, they can find their genomic targets rapidly and validate them using our technology. We're also part of the wave in precision healthcare and oncology, and in targeted oncology. Many drugs today target specific molecular changes in cancer. We have comprehensive cancer solutions that can look across all the genes that we know are altered in cancer in a single test, allowing a physician to know which changes and therefore which drugs will be the most efficacious in their patients. We also help people understand populations. The genomic information across different ethnicities, across different age groups, and use that as part of the foundational science that stirs and grows the next wave of innovation in different countries. We also have a consumer genomics business, which gives broad access to genomics for the consumer market. So we've done this through our open platform. And over the years, we've developed more and more instruments and chemistries that make genomic sequencing accessible. We make it accessible at low price points for small scale experiments up to factory scale sequencing, where today you can sequence a human genome for less than $1,000. We could continue this innovation. Our customers have come to expect it. And our approach to an open platform allowing third parties to build applications has been key to that success. We've invested a lot in the research and development to consistently improve the technology in genomics. This is higher density of genomic data on the machines that produce it, better data management, new chemistries that allow, similar to information technologies and memory chips, allow these things to be miniaturized. Tremendous investments in pioneering new optical systems that can scan and create this data faster. With the immense amount of data generation also comes the need to manage this data. And we've innovated here too, and also work with some of the leading cloud providers, software companies, and hardware companies in the world, right? So as it becomes routine to generate a whole human genome's worth of data for routine clinical care, you need to be able to manage that data in the cloud. You need to be able to access the compute to very rapidly generate the insights. Things that used to take days can now be done in minutes with the innovations in hardware, software that we've helped pioneer. I wanted to, highlight our very prominent Korea team. It's an important site for both some of our research and development, but also in particular our commercial and our partnering activities. We think it's very important to have this presence, in Korea, and look forward to their continued success. So the reason that I'm speaking with you today remotely is because of the global pandemic. And we've been positioned and lucky to play a very significant role in this. This is a brief timeline of some of the key events in the pandemic, up to the staggering loss of life and health and economic consequences associated with the pandemic. Early in January, our technology was used to produce the first viral genome sequence of the coronavirus. This was the moment that the world knew for sure this indeed was a novel virus. It was also the beginning of the race to create the new vaccine. With the virus DNA sequence in hand, companies like Moderna, companies like Pfizer, that very day downloaded the sequence and began their development of the virus. In Moderna's case, 42 days later, it had the first a prototype vaccine entering clinical trials. So what used to take almost a decade was reduced to 42 days because of the urgency, but in large part because of the technology. With genomic technology, again, could very rapidly understand it, identify the targets, the spike protein as an example, just from the DNA sequence, and therefore develop a vaccine based on that. During 2020, this has been a major focus of ours to work across many different applications to use our technology to help in the pandemic. Our technology is being used today to rapidly test for COVID-19. In particular, our technology produces the full viral sequence. So not just whether or not an individual is positive or negative, but the exact strain. This enables molecular profiling and molecular epidemiology to understand transmission. Where are new strains coming from? Are they coming from different geographies? How are they being transmitted? It also allows epidemiologists to understand the emergence of new strains. Recently, a new strain has been profiled in the eastern United States. We don't understand exactly the consequence of it. It may be more pathogenic. It may be more benign. It may not be consequential. But the important thing is, because of our technology, the emergence of the strain was rapidly identified and can be addressed. Our technology is also being used to understand why the disease severity is so variable. Some individuals have very rapidly progressive disease and succumb to it. For others, they're asymptomatic. We're still trying to understand this, but understanding the host genome is becoming as important as understanding the viral genome. And then, as I alluded to, our technology is critical in the development of the vaccine, understanding which proteins to target, and then during clinical trials, what is the host response, and also what are the different strains that are emerging, and is there a difference in response and viral immunity based on the different strains. We've partnered with large consortia to attack this. You need a lot of data from a lot of patients with a lot of excellent clinical annotation, working with governments, working with health organizations and health agencies. These are just a few of the international consortia that we've been working with, pooling our resources. We're making our technology available, at much lower costs, doing everything we can to allow the genomics aspect of this to accelerate the fight against the pandemic. I also wanted to tell you about a new area that we're trying to open up and accelerate, and that's in cancer. Various companies have been developing on our platform tests that, as I mentioned, can be used to find the right treatment for cancer patients. They're also using them to be able to monitor patients, understand very early in the course of treatment whether or not they're responding to their disease or responding to the treatment. And then even beyond that, there's a company called GRAIL, which has been using our technology to detect cancer early. So this is a test for people who don't know they have cancer, but unfortunately a small percentage of people do have a unknown cancer at any particular time and find it early. We know that cancer outcomes are dramatically better when they're found early. So when a cancer is localized, we have curable approaches involving surgery, radiation, chemotherapy. You can see the dramatic difference here in 5-year survival between cancers that are found early and cancers are found late. GRAIL's mission is to use Illumina's technology to make it so that one day most people's cancers are found when their chances of survival are much higher because the treatments are more effective. Today, unfortunately, most cancers, there are no early detection tests, and that's why a blood-based test that can address many cancers is so exciting. GRAIL's test can detect 50 different cancer types. In particular, and I think relevant to Korea, is that it's very effective at detecting gastric cancer. Gastric cancer is a cancer that unfortunately follows the same pattern. When found locally, treatments can be effective, very good long-term survival. When the gastric cancer has spread distantly throughout the body, obviously the prognosis is not as good and much more difficult to treat. So by having a blood test, again, that can detect so many cancers in a convenient format, it's very scalable, can be deployed widely. We think this could make a big dent in cancer mortality. To accelerate the studies needed to understand the benefits of this test and ultimately to adopt it at national scale, GRAIL, with the support of Illumina, is partnering with a health service in the United Kingdom. Sorry. Could I get some confirmation that the audio is working?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So as I was saying, GRAIL and Illumina are partnering with national organizations like the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. And this is a way to accelerate the use of the technology, generate the data that's needed to understand the benefit and how to best use this technology. This is a kind of partnership that could happen, for example, in Korea or in other countries around the world to bring this technology to the benefit of their citizens much faster. Today, we have over 50 partnerships with governments around the world on national genomics projects. These vary in size and scale and focus, but they're all in common, which is, how can, understanding the genomics of their, of disease, of risk, of cancer be used for the benefit of their citizens. It's also been, countries that have invested in this have been able to accelerate entrepreneurship. So new companies, startup companies, partnerships with pharma. And so there's been many economic benefits and new companies that have come out of these seminal projects. Again, I want to highlight the project we're very excited about in South Korea, the National Bio-Big Data Project, again, with the ambitious goal of generating that foundational genomic data for the Korean population. Thinking forward about how we could accelerate the use of genomics, I've touched upon some of these areas, but want to leave them with the audience to think about and are excited about any follow-up discussions. So one is on data infrastructure and policies to really use genomics data because of its size, because of the need to do computation, the needs to pool data, the needs to share data. It's important to have a modern data infrastructure. If individuals are sending hard drives by mail, that makes it much harder to take advantage of this. So I think that's an area to think about for ongoing innovation, to create that modern infrastructure and policies. It's also very important to have good standards and interoperability between these this data infrastructure. If all data is in different formats, that makes it difficult to translate data, to share it, and so on. The other is data integrity and security. We take that extremely seriously. We believe that's one of the reasons that we partner so effectively with countries around the world. There are good engineering solutions to this. This has to be first and foremost when you're developing these projects, that you have those engineering solutions in place to ensure the data is not corrupted and that it's used for the proper purposes and only accessed for the sanctioned uses. I already touched on the large national genomics projects. These not only are valuable in the data that they create themselves, but in the follow-on companies and collaborations they stimulate. The next is more of a clinical focus, and that is around reimbursement for the use of these technologies and also the regulatory paths. We found that nations that create a rapid regulatory path where the innovations, and they have to be proven in rigorous data, but when the benefits are there for patients, the health economics are there, when there's a path to adopt these, well, then what happens is, they are rolled out much faster, and also the industry to support them is galvanized, and the venture capital and the other funding comes in because there is a path to market for these benefits. So with that, I'll stop and look forward to the additional speakers and the panel discussion. Thank you again for the opportunity to share what we're doing at Illumina.
Thank you, Dr. Arabanes. It was quite valuable and useful. Our next speaker is Jenny Zhang. Ms. Jenny Zhang is a managing director of Janssen Korea, and also she's a board member of KRPIA. And she earned an engineering degree from Shanghai Jiadong University, and also she got an MBA from the University of Chicago. Please welcome her.
Yes, hi, dear friends, dear healthcare professionals, all the industry friends. I'm really excited and feel very honored to be invited today to talk about this topic. This is a very deep and very profound topic about innovation and about pandemic and how can we continue and even advance all the science or the accumulation of experience in clinical development to advance it. But on the other side, let's also not forget that the science is not driven by one company, and many speakers already elaborated in multiple forms. It's about entrepreneurship, it's about network, and I think that we also want to share with you that Janssen, Johnson Johnson is also actively playing a part to facilitate these open innovation ecosystem. So again, thank you for AMCHAM to host this 11th healthcare seminar. I think this is a wonderful tradition, and definitely this will become a signature program that gradually accumulate our reputation in innovation, but also openness in collaboration. So when I want to talk about this topic, I think very first idea comes in is what's the definition of open innovation in a quick line of words. It really struck me that the definition from MOHW is so vividly and so precisely paint the essence of open innovation. Is about a cooperation mechanism. It is about between leading companies, startup, venture firms, so that we have a network to work together. I want to just share with you that this definition and this communication on the public website is so much resonating with our definition in Johnson & Johnson because we do define innovation as about creating strong network of people who can combine resource, ideas, technology in a new way. So I think that the Korean government and Johnson & Johnson certainly view innovation is not a product, it is not a system, but it is a network. It is a willingness to partner and collaborate. And on the other side, if I look across Asia, and I certainly work in multiple places, and I work 19 years in Johnson & Johnson, Janssen, I think that it's good to call out, and we should really call out this loudly, is about Korea. What is really distinguished Korea as a country in terms of science? You may or may not have been aware of this publication. I just want to bring it with pleasure to show you that when Nature has a publication 2 years ago, that's pretty recent data. It is about science in East Asia. They look at the spending. So it's interesting and very important to call out this light blue line. That is the proportion of R&D spending in the total GDP. And you can see that Korea is certainly, in terms of percentage, really outperform all of the countries, okay, I have to say, from this paper. And you can also see that this is not just comparing across Asian countries. They actually have a benchmark, the dot of the United States. Again, US is a large economy and large home base for science, but we are talking about the percentage of R&D spending versus the percentage of the GDP. And Korea is certainly the top in terms of percentage. It tops about 4.3%. At the time cutoff is 2016, and I'm pretty sure that the data will only go up. And second part, I want you just to feel good about it, is the science. Because if you really talk about science, it boils down to the resource of the fundings, but also the resource of people. So the same paper also published, it is about the density of researchers. Well, we know that different countries are different size in their own population, but interestingly, if you look at scientist population versus the whole nation's population, you're going to again see South Korea tops the list in terms of density, how many scientists we have on a per thousand population basis. And if you also look at the right bar, it is about absolute. It is also interesting to find that Korea is in the absolute is number 2 in Asia. And number 3 are right after China and Japan. So I think that this calls for the foundations of whatever we are talking about science and healthcare. We are very pleased we work in this land because I feel proud. This is my third year working in Korea and leading our cluster of North Asia business. I feel very much rewarding, and I feel very much aspirational to really bring up Korea in the global stage in terms of innovation. So let me just quickly share with you a quick overview about our infrastructure in Johnson & Johnson, but also later part I will talk about how we collaborate in this year on an open innovation platform. So a very brief overview is Johnson & Johnson is a very is the world's largest healthcare company. We have multiple sectors. Pharmaceutical sector is more than 50% of Johnson & Johnson enterprise revenue, and with the other half contributed by medical device, consumer business, vision care. In terms of innovation, we really look forward for global solutions. We are not looking for local solutions and add them together. The design of the infrastructure is to look for how can we do in different life stage of those innovative ideas. Wherever they pop up, there is a channel for them to come to us and we can work with them. So you actually see, like in multiple news, like there will be news about Johnson & Johnson Innovation Centers, there will be news about JJDC, there will be news about JLab, there will be news about Janssen of Johnson & Johnson business development striking a stage. It really goes along the life cycle of an idea. If an idea is in very early stage, JJIC is the place to go, and there are several JJIC globally, and in Asia Pac, JJIC, there is a physical connection in hub in Shanghai, but also we have a Seoul BioHub partnership office that works as a satellite site, and it's becoming very active nowadays. So I think that in JLab and like business development is not like, how can I say, it's not a new idea, but really fundamentally it's about how we implement it. And we are pleased to say that Johnson & Johnson has invested continuously, and this is our prime goal to attract, to pursue the best science in these areas. So I work many years in pharmaceuticals. We work immunology, neuroscience, oncology. We also work infectious disease, and nowadays the public health domain, COVID-19 vaccine. But I also want to say that vaccine as a business for us is not just about COVID-19 in pandemic situation. There is a long-term plan. I think that certainly plays a very important role, growing importance in terms of infectious disease and vaccine. So I also have my partner colleagues working medical device, consumer health, vision, and there are some good cross-sector functions. And we really look forward to collaboration with the best science wherever they come from. The aspiration for Janssen is about really bring the transformational medical innovation to the market. So there is a forecast. Again, this is a forecast by third party looking to 2026. Pharmaceutical alone in Johnson & Johnson, how would we place ourselves in the global scene? And we also look at the R&D spending. Well, the money is not everything, but it's also an important thing. It's about how we committed in bringing science, because there are many errors. There are many the very fact that we can have the new therapy is because the whole industry accept that try first. If there is a failure, that's good. Fail fast and fail early, so that we can try new ideas. So that's the cycle of how the R&D really works in this industry. And Johnson & Johnson certainly is the top three, and just basically in the amount dollar value, every year we're expecting to commit 10 billion US dollar in looking for every type of innovation and experiment it, commercialize it whenever we can. So I think this is about the company in the global scene. But I'm here for Janssen Korea, and I myself really represent and lead Janssen Korea. This is a company that has 36 years in Korea. We have a proud history, but we find a new chapter in our history that was in 2019, last year. We were very honored to be awarded Innovative Pharmaceutical Company that among more than 46, about 46 companies, we are a few multinationals who get this award. I think really talks about, it's not just about bringing a product, it's really about co-create an ecosystem to the Prime Minister's earlier saying. It is about how can we together support Korea as a business hub in the healthcare. When we think about business hub, we think about probably Boston for many people. It's good to just have an analogy, because it's always good to think about how we as a company can support the whole system and support the government, support the entrepreneur, support everything, and we work and also benefit together from the joint development. So we do have multiple events. I think I won't bother you with all these events, but it certainly brings a profound and very memorable moment. Starting from 2017, that we established our BioHub, Seoul BioHub office, partnership office for Johnson & Johnson Innovation. That's a physical presence, and we do have multiple meetings, interactions, exchange of ideas with multiple level of government, with KOTRA, with Seoul Metropolitan Government, with Kitty. So there has been a long and really fruitful collaborations. I think that if I may say that our impact in Korea, are we satisfied? We are pleased but never satisfied. We see a growing impact in Korea. Probably some of you, if you work and really follow carefully about some industry news, you may hear that 2 years ago we signed a oncology asset with Yuhan on a global deal basis. That deal itself, the target value of that deal is 1.2 billion US dollar. It is about one compound that Yuhan discovered and developed to a certain stage, lazertinib. It is a lung cancer compound, third generation TKI, and Johnson & Johnson certainly look for the best science, and this is one of the best science we find. We should collaborate. So the collaboration with Yuhan is really a good experience. We are still working on it. Johnson & Johnson also has a pipeline of lung cancer, and we're currently looking into how can we marry the two therapies, our own bispecific antibody, amivantamab, to plus lazertinib. How does that bring clinical value? So that is one example, but Yuhan is a big company. And I'm going to show that, in fact, innovation doesn't come just from big company, and big company is about big company, small company, startup. But we are also pleased to see that some other collaboration idea, really top of the science, is about 3D printings, that our medical device folks are really pioneer in this part of area, and we are very pleased to sign up a deal with a Korean-based company on 3D printing. So that is quite exciting. I think that many companies, as I've just mentioned, ideas doesn't matter, big or small. These are some examples of the startup. They are already in the form of a company shape. We actually station, they are the residents of Johnson & Johnson Open Innovation Forum. The picture you saw here, they are real pictures, and the type of residency are just various format. You are going to see more and more virtual, but just being virtual doesn't mean that they are less present. In fact, the very format I'm joining is a virtual, but I truly feel that I'm with all of you in this conference. Another thing is about really organizing those events that bring the global experience and wisdom to support the ecosystem. So there was an event I personally joined. I feel very excited. And still, I was thinking about how can we continue those very good conversations. At the time, as I mentioned, we actually invited Boston expert, and they bring us ideas about how Boston, Massachusetts, become a life industry ecosystem hub of innovations. So it certainly create a lot of discussions, entrepreneur ideas, and I want to say that this is a wonderful format. So let me just use next 3 or 4 minutes to summarize my my conclusion. In 2020, okay, I want to talk. One last topic is about how can we really organize COVID-19 and still encourage entrepreneurs before they even have the idea, before they even have the company. So Quick File Challenge is a platform that really designed for those entrepreneurs, which is very, very early, but they really can represent, and the potential is they really can represent the next unicorn ideas. And how can we identify them? How can we encourage? And then on the other side, the government, so metropolitan government, Korean government, really want to put Seoul as the center in the global stage. How can we continue to do that? So I think that we actually believe Quick File Challenge is a very good platform, and we have been doing that for the last 3 years. Question for this year is, are we going to continue to do that? How many applicants will be apply for it? And interestingly and phenomenon thing is, this year we received 108 applications. They are fully qualified for application. The number 108 is actually double than last year, 54. And second, more interestingly, we received 108, and out of 108, 29 from Korean companies and 79 from global companies, from global geographical areas. You are going to be struck by the fact that U.S. Companies from U.S. submitted their applications for Seoul Quick File Challenge, amounts to 30. So it's interesting to see that this is a Seoul Quick File Challenge. We receive more than 70% from global applicants. This calls for the power of the network. And I'm so pleased that in the end, we choose, again, we are not in the judging. I'm not personally judging. We have a special expertise judging panel. And we saw that the 2 companies, Korean companies, really cut the competitions and be the winner. But I think the true spirit of the whole thing is about collaboration despite of challenges. And the second thing is really about imagination. Before we open up this Seoul Quick File Challenge 2020, our own thinking is about, can we maintain, or can we slightly over last year, because there are different format, different interest. But guess what? We double the applications. We received double the application, and 70% global applications. Among them, 30 from US and 29 from Korea. So I think that calls for the power of persistency. If you continue to build a brand, if people really trust you are genuinely committed, passionate, I think we are going to see a lot of fruit. And I certainly want to close by saying thank you. This has been a tremendous journey this year for everybody. Johnson & Johnson is pleased to establish ourselves as a partner for providing internal expertise and a partner for external collaborations. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Ms. Zhang, for your very comprehensive and encouraging presentation. Our third speaker is Francis Ben Paris. He is the Vice President, Commercial, Sativa Asia Pacific. He graduated from the University of Ghent in Belgium with a master's degree in material science and engineering. He also holds a Master of Science in Polymer Technology from UMIST in Manchester, UK. Please welcome him.
Good morning, everyone. 안녕하세요. I'm very pleased to be here with you in person today and talk to you about collaboration and open innovation, a topic that I will have to do justice following these exquisite speakers that have preceded me. Contrary to the companies that were represented earlier today, Janssen, Johnson Johnson, as well as Illumina, Cytiva may not be the most well-known in the industry yet. Perhaps it is useful to clarify, Sativa was founded as a brand name on April 1st of this year, after the divestment of this business from GE Healthcare. So our business has been around for multiple decades, more than 60 years in biopharma. We have been part of GE for a long period of time and became a Danaher standalone company on April 1st of this year under the brand name of Sativa. Some of you may wonder, what does Sativa mean? In fact, it is a combination of the word cytos, Greek, which stands for cell, and iva, which is a Latin suffix, which means enabling. Essentially, that describes our purpose. It is, we are enabling therapeutics, we are enabling vaccine manufacturing, we are enabling biopharmaceutical solutions by working with cells and anything a cell can do. So from a contribution to the biopharma world, we are basically active in 4 major areas. First one being bioprocessing. This is essentially an area where biological drugs are manufactured. We are helping pharmaceutical firms, biotech companies to manufacture biological drugs, mostly based on protein. Essentially, in plain words, what this means, if a biological drug were to be manufactured in a kitchen, we would be supplying the pots, the pans, the mixer, and the ingredients for the soup, the butter, the olive oil, etc. So essentially, a tools provider for manufacturing of biological drugs. We are also heavily involved in the world of cell and gene therapy, which is a novel area of therapy, highly promising, and is likely to overtake the bioprocessing area in 5 to 10 years from now in terms of its efficiency and efficacy of treatment. Cell and gene therapy essentially are therapies that replace defect and defunct cells in the body or modify genes in the body to combat a particular disease area and are a highly effective and promising area of innovation. We also enable research, working with academic partners as well as biotech and biopharma companies to help them with imaging, analytical instrumentation, and further research tools. Finally, we are active in providing infrastructure solutions. When a government or a pharmaceutical company would like to invest in a manufacturing facility, we can provide that from start to finish in modular fashion, and we have done so across the world. As I said, innovation is essential to Sativa. We believe innovation happens close to the customer, which is why we have innovation centers around the world. My responsibility includes Asia Pacific, from India to China, Southeast Asia, Japan, Korea, and Australia, New Zealand. And within this geography alone, we have 9 innovation centers. An important one being here in Korea, in Songdo, where many of our primary customers are located. And essentially, we see the role of those innovation centers to be training future professionals for the industry, to be working with biotech and biopharma companies to help them with process development, manufacturing advancement, testing of new technologies, as well as helping them drive innovation in their space. Our company has about 7,000 employees globally, growing fast. We do about 4 billion in revenue, and as an example, more than 90% of the biological drugs, the best-selling biological drugs, use our products in the manufacturing of the drugs. So we have a pretty strong and global and leading presence in this space. I'm not just here to talk about Sativa, of course. I'm here to talk about COVID-19 and the impact that it has had on ourselves, on our industry, and how innovation and collaboration is absolutely critical to combating this pandemic. Wanted to start with a commitment and a call to action that the World Health Organization has launched earlier this year in the month of April. And essentially it summarizes the purpose of my talk today. It is all about how collaboration is essential to being successful in ensuring that in the fight against COVID-19, no one gets left behind. This isn't just about developing the right technology that supports effective vaccine programs, therapeutic programs, or diagnostic tests. That's important and absolutely essential, of course. However, it is about more than that. It is about ensuring we understand the biological mechanism of the disease. We have effective mechanisms to develop the drug, have a scalable manufacturing process, a robust manufacturing network that can distribute globally, work with logistics partners. So it's a much more complex exercise than just developing the technology, and therefore collaboration is absolutely essential to making that happen. And this call to action was a call to action not just to private sector, but to academics, to politicians, to public sector organizations, governmental organizations, and therefore absolutely essential to the fight. I just wanted to put some perspective around the word unprecedented. When we say that a pandemic is accelerated, I just wanted to put some perspective around that and put it in historical perspective. And on the page you see the comparison between 3 graphs, Ebola, HIV, and COVID-19. And on the y-axis you see the number of programs that have been or were developed around combating that particular condition, be it vaccine or therapeutics. And on the x-axis you see the number of years or months in the case of COVID-19 that it has taken to develop these programs. It's kind of pretty clear to see in the case of Ebola it took about more than 40 years in fact to develop around 300 health programs. For HIV it took about same amount of time to develop about 1,200 vaccine and therapeutic programs. In the case of COVID-19, the same was done in the space of 7 months. So it kind of gives you some data points and some feeling for what speed this has had to develop, how the industry has had to come together to ensure we meet the speed of innovation. And it is pretty clear that the industry cannot do this alone. This is great news, but of course, as I mentioned before, the technology development alone is not enough. Essentially, if we look at and then kind of go fast forward to perhaps, let's say, the summer of next year, where a majority of a population would be vaccinated, by that time we will not just have to have the technology that supports these vaccine and therapeutic programs. It really goes about a lot more than that. It starts with a solid understanding of the diagnosis of and the epidemiology that supports this disease. It follows on with an understanding of the biological mechanisms to research and develop the therapeutics for it. We obviously, when those candidates have been developed, and I mentioned on the previous page, about 1,200 programs are ongoing to do so. We need to demonstrate their clinical safety and efficacy. Many of these programs will not make it. Many of these programs will advance our science, but they will not make it. However, they will not make it for good reasons, because they may generate a false positive in a different test. They may generate a safety concern or side effects that are not acceptable to patients. Once that stage is passed, we need to ensure that there is a scalability and a manufacturing process that is robust and a supply chain that can support it, which is an absolutely essential part as well. I think there's already news reports about the approved vaccines in the case of Pfizer and Moderna, where there are certain challenges in terms of manufacturing the number of doses that are required and demanded across the globe at the moment. Clearly, the industry hasn't done this for a long period of time, not at this scale in essence. So new mechanisms need to be found and new partnerships need to be developed. Other aspects include absolutely the manufacturing capacity. In January of this year, many of the pharmaceutical companies around the world did not necessarily take into account that the manufacturing capacity of this scale would be needed to manufacture the vaccine. And so a lot of the facilities have had to be repurposed. New infrastructure will have had to be built and is in the process of being built. And surge capacity has had to be found, and that is necessary to be looked upon in a broader context than just the individual private sector. And then obviously it comes towards delivering those therapies and monitoring the result of them. So we are still very much in the midst of this. Clearly, if you look at the complexity of this challenge, it is very clear that no one company, no one organization, no one government can do this alone. So this is where the word collaboration comes in, and this is where the unprecedented nature of this challenge shows that only if we join hands together, as the World Health Organization has asked us to do, we will be successful in ultimately making sure everyone is safe. Because bear in mind, as long as 1 or 2 people on this earth are not safe from COVID-19, none of us are. And so we have a responsibility to go towards the end and ensuring that we use collaboration to make that happen and do not give up before that result has been achieved. I wanted to give you some examples of these collaboration activities and partnerships that I have been referring to and that we have been engaged in as a company. Other than supporting the manufacturing and providing tools and hardware and infrastructure to manufacture some of the important global vaccine programs, we are also developing as a tools and technology provider. We've been working with diagnostic companies, a few mentioned on this page here, to help them do different things. Essentially, we use our technology, our components, to help them either manufacture more tests, manufacture tests that yield a result in a more rapid period of time. I'm sure for those of you who have been through the quarantine period in Korea, some of you were quite impatiently waiting for the test result to arrive once you come back to Korea. Usually takes 24 to 48 hours. Many tests actually are available in which that is possible within a space of 10 minutes to an hour. We have been working on developing that technology with our partners. What's also important is a clear bottleneck around the world has been the capacity of test laboratories. So if we can develop technology that helps take the test out of the laboratory and ensure these tests can be done in the field, at home, in remote areas, especially if you think about emerging countries, emerging economies where people don't really have access to healthcare facilities that easily. It's important to have diagnostic tests that they have access to and that can be done on a remote basis. So we have been working on developing those tests as well. Other than that, our core business supporting manufacturability. We have been working with partners within the industry to either help them accelerate their manufacturing process scale-up, so essentially moving it from the laboratory to the manufacturing facility, and or could include the manufacturing of clinical trial material. Obviously, speed is everything. If we have to bring a vaccine to market in a year, which is usually taking 5 to 7 years, some things will have to go faster, including the manufacturing scale-up. So we have been working with a number of partners, including the ones mentioned on this page, to do so. And we've also provided new infrastructure to governments as well as pharmaceutical companies. And these are not just examples of partnerships that exist between a private company just as like ourselves and the customer. They include, in many cases, also venture capitalist firms, government-funded research organizations, and typically involve 4 to 5 different actors to ensure we get to the desired end result. Closer to home, we have also engaged in a number of partnerships in Korea on the diagnostic front with people like Seoul, Boreda, Bionode, Celltrion, well-known manufacturer of biosimilars based in Songdo, Korea, has a very promising therapeutic, which it is hoping to get emergency use approval for by the end of this year, which would be an amazing result. We have been working with them to provide raw materials for their manufacturing process. The Animal Vaccine Center we have been working with in order to provide them with infrastructure, as well as SK Bio, who is one of the companies working with a global pharmaceutical company to manufacture the vaccine here locally in Korea for Korea. So we are proud of these partnerships. We are privileged to be working with these important companies and be part of their success. We feel a very strong sense of responsibility and accountability in this exercise. I have to say, when we made our budget in the beginning of this year, we had no clue whatsoever of what was coming towards us. The demand for the tools, services, and products in this industry has risen with an enormous significance. And so companies like ourselves have had to really reconsider our strategy, look at where we can contribute to the industry by expanding capacity, accelerate investment to support these developments. And as a result, we have announced partnerships with various companies, including investments into the next 5 years of $500 million to ensure we have the manufacturing capacity to support the development of therapeutics and vaccines, as well as hiring more than 1,500 people in the last 6 months. So it's a very vibrant and dynamic industry, which we are to be proud of. It's an essential part of our mission and our vision. And let me just remind and finish on that point. Our vision is to be in a world in which access to life-saving therapies change patient lives and patients' health. And The reason we come to work every day is to realize that vision. We come to work every day with a mission to advance and accelerate therapeutics. So as you can see, and I hope that the examples I provided to you today were indeed a good example of how COVID-19 is essential and at the heart of our mission as a contributor to this innovative collaboration and open innovation ecosystem, as well as in Korea. So thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Paris, for your very insightful presentation. I'd like to thank you again, all three speakers, for their excellent presentation. Now it's time for panel discussion. Let me firstly introduce first panel, Dr. Mang-gi Song. Mang-gi Song is the Deputy Director General of IBI's Science Unit. He has had a long-standing interest in public health and threat to the health of developing countries' population. Dr. Song received his BSc degree from Seoul National University and his MSc and PhD degrees from Hwang University of Science and Technology. Please welcome him.
네, 소개 감사합니다. 사실 지금 이제 백신이 이제 접종이 들어갔습니다. 그래서 사실 그 오늘 이제 오픈 이노베이션 주제에서 백신에 대해서 따로 설명할 필요가 없을 정도로 아마 오픈 이노베이션이 가장 큰 역할을 한 분야가 지금 백신이 아닌가 지금 생각이 되는데요. 지금 여기에 지금 계신 여러 기업들이 지금 이런 큰 성공을 지금 거두게 해서 정말 먼저 감사를 드리고 싶습니다. 지금 저희가 백신 전문가들, 안소니 파우치를 비롯하여 전 세계 거의 모든 전문가들이 사실 올해 이제 이게 팬데믹 상황이 발생했을 때 대부분 다 내년 중반 이후나 내년 말 정도에 아마 백신이 개발이 성공할 것이라고 다들 예상을 했었고, 올해 안에 개발돼서 접종이 될 거라고 예상하신 분들은 아마 거의 없었던 것으로 제가 보는데요. 이렇게 빠르게 접종이 가능해진 지금 상황이 보시면 아시겠지만 대부분 다 공동 연구를 통한 개발이라든지 아마 개발과 생산을 또 따로 하는 것들 여러 가지 이제 공동 연구가 대부분 다 아주 잘 이루어졌습니다. 그래서 지금 상당히 많은 백신들이 일단 파이저와 모더나 그리고 아스트라제네카 등 보시면은 대부분의 그 개발이 여러 기업들 간의 공동 연구 그리고 또 특히 이제 시퀀스라든지 이런 것들 여러 정보들이 공개가 빨리빨리 되고 이런 과정들을 통해서 정말 인류가 유례 없이 빠르게 이런 백신 개발이 성공할 수 있는 그런 기반이 되지 않았나 싶습니다. 그래서 백신 분야가 이렇게까지 또 빨리 개발이 되고 이렇게 여러 가지 이제 그 공동 연구가 될 수 있었던 또 기반이 2017년에 그 다보스 포럼에서 인류가 이런 것들을 공동으로 대비하기 위해서는 세피 같은 어떤 큰 재단을 만들어서 거기에서 이런 것들을 지원을 하자. 사실 이런 것들도 지금 큰 역할을 하고 있습니다. 사실 세피에서 지금 9개의 이제 백신 개발 연구를 지원을 하고 있습니다. 이런 것들은 전 세계가 함께 지금 공동으로 노력을 하고 그리고 개발 및 이런 생산 이런 것들을 다 분담해서 하는 역할까지 지금 어떻게 보면 오픈 이노베이션을 이 분야의 팬데믹 상황에서 활용하는 그러한 것들을 하자고 지금 출발이 돼서 이번 그 팬데믹 상황에서 엄청나게 큰 역할들을 지금 하고 있습니다. 그래서 이런 백신 분야에서의 이 오픈 이노베이션은 지금 이번 팬데믹에서 큰 위력을 지금 보여줬다고 지금 명백하게 보여줬다고 지금 생각이 되고요. 저희 국제 백신 연구소도 이번 그 팬데믹 상황에서 원래는 저희가 이제 백신을 주로 개발하고 보급하는 역할을 진행을 하지만 이번에는 상당히 많은 개발자들이 있고 회사들이 있기 때문에 이번에는 개발을 직접 하진 않고 지원하는 역할을 저희가 하기로 처음부터 이제 결정을 했습니다. 그래서 지금 현재 저희가 국내에서 하고 있는 임상 2개에 대해서 임상 분석 등 여러 가지 지원을 하고 있고 실제 한 10여 개 기업의 지금 개발을 저희가 지금 돕고 있습니다. 그리고 조만간엔 또 임상 3상도 저희가 글로벌에서 하는 임상 3상도 아마 저희가 또 지원을 하게 될 것 같습니다. 그래서 이런 그 팬데믹 상황 그리고 이제 어떤 이제 뭔가를 빠르게 이제 하기 위해서는 예전같이 하나의 어떤 기업이나 어떤 기관에서 모든 걸 다 하겠다 이런 것들은 통하지 않는 시대가 된 것 같습니다. 그래서 정말로 뭔가를 인류를 위해서 뭔가를 빠르게 성취하고 달성을 하기 위해서는 아주 빠르게 이런 것들을 하기 위해서는 정말 자기가 가지고 있는 최고가 뭔지를 알고 그것들을 전부 다 같이 협력하고 공동의 노력을 통해서 빠르게 이렇게 달성할 수 있지 않을까 싶습니다. 그리고 저희가 또 이런 것들을 위해서 저희가 게이츠 재단과 한국복지부 그리고 국내에 있는 기업들과 같이 해서 또 라이프 펀드라는 것을 만들었습니다. 그래서 이러한 것들도 마찬가지로 오픈 이노베이션에 참 좋은 예라고 생각이 되는데요. 그것들이 이제 개발하는 곳과 그리고 이제 생산하는 곳들을 또 다 연결을 시켜서 빠르게 백신 치료 진단을 개발할 수 있는 것들을 저희가 이니시에이션을 해서 지금 몇 년째 잘 운영이 되고 있는 것으로 알고 있습니다. 그래서 향후에도 뭔가 빠르고 혁신적인 제품들을 위해서는 이런 오픈 이노베이션이 아주 꼭 필요하고 중요한 역할을 할 것으로 생각이 돼서 이번 그 아주 중요한 이런 그 세미나를 열어준 이런 암참에 또 감사를 드리면서 마치도록 하겠습니다.
Thank you, Dr. Song. Our next panel is Dr. Yang-Sin Lee. She's the CEO of Korea Research-Based Pharmaceutical Industry Association. She earned a PhD from University of Oregon. Please welcome her.
Since I see more Korean attendees in this room, and I assume online would be the same, so I'm selecting Korean language for communicating and my opinion on the open innovation. 앞서서 세 분의 연자가 각각 그 본인들의 경험을 저희하고 공유해 주셨어요. 알렉스가 이제 한 말 중에 infra, 그 다음에 large project, 그 다음에 reimbursement on the precision medicine에 있는 게 있으면 좀 오픈 이노베이션이 좋겠다. 그 다음에 제니의 경우는 한국의 우수성, 사이언스라든가 그 다음에 R&D 펀드에 대한 그 우수성을 얘기해 주셨고, 프랜시스의 경우는 그 오픈 이노베이션이 better future를 만든다라는 말씀을 해주셨는데, 오늘 그 스피커나 또 여기 패널로 나와주신 분이나 여기에 계시는 여러분 모두가 오픈 이노베이션의 중요성엔 다 동의를 하실 것 같아요. 그래서 여기 패널에 오기 전에 그럼 오픈 이노베이션이 왜 필요한가에 대해서 저는 조금 생각을 해봤습니다. 굉장히 기초적인 질문이죠. 근데 오픈 이노베이션이 필요한 거는 같이 성장하는 것, 그러니까 fostering the co-growth. 그 다음에 소시오-이코노믹스에 굉장히 포지티브한 임팩트를 줍니다. 그리고 제일 중요한, 저희는 이 헬스케어에 있어서 항상 people-centered, patient-centered라는 것이 저희 코어에 있습니다. 그래서 페이션트한테 신약이라든가 신기술을 액세스할 수 있는 기회를 높여주는 거죠. 그러면 우리나라가 10년 전하고 지금이 우리의 에코시스템도 많이 변했고, 그 다음에 할 수 있는 역량, 몸집이 많이 컸죠. 캐파도 컸고. 그래서 지금 여러분께서 들으신 바와 같이 글로벌 컴퍼니나 같은 스타트업끼리 또는 벤처 컴퍼니 또는 미드사이즈 파마수티컬 서로 이렇게 콜라보레이션이 많이 일어나고 있어요. 그거는 최근 한 5년 정도에 볼 수 있었던 일이고, 송만기 그 원장님께서 말씀해 주신 것처럼 백신도 파이자하고 바이오엔텍, 그 다음에 모데나도 NHI라든가 같이 갖고, 아스트라제니카 많이 들어보셨죠? 아스트라제니카하고 옥스포드도 같이 했고 전부 콜라보레이션이 있었습니다. 하지만 그 밑에 보이지 않는 콜라보레이션, 오픈 이노베이션은 레귤레이터, FDA라든가 EMA, 그 다음에 한국의 MFDS, 식약처도 같이 오픈 이노베이션에 참가해서 왔기 때문에 백신이 채 1년도 안 내서 이렇게 상품으로 나올 수 있다는 것은 저희는 미러클, 기적이라고 얘기하고 있습니다. 그러면 이 모든 부분은 혼자 갈 수가 없어요. 그리고 우리 속담에 빨리 가려면 혼자 가고 멀리 가려면 같이 가라고 그랬는데 이제는 빨리 가고 싶어도 같이 가야 됩니다. 그래서 여러분이 이 팬데믹 상황을 통해 가지고 굉장히 많은 새로운 거를 보고 오픈 이노베이션, 콜라보레이션 얘기도 들었지만 이렇게 피부에 와서 가깝게 닿은 경우는 이렇게 많지 않을 거예요. 여기에 정부의 역할이 굉장히 중요합니다. 특히 우리나라에서는. 정부가 앞으로 나갈 폴리시를 오픈 이노베이션, 그 다음에 그 가치, 그러니까 오픈 이노베이션을 통해 가지고 신약, 신기술이 나왔을 때 그 가치를 어떻게 인정을 해줄 것인가. 그리고 그것이 선순환이 돼 가지고 우리나라의 장래를 책임질 이 바이오 파마가 IT가 갔던 길을 다시 나가기 위해서 정부의 역할, 정부가 해야 되는 일들이 아주 많습니다. 거기에 인프라스트럭처는 같이 만들어야 되지만 정부의 이니셔티브가 같이 따라와야 되는 부분이기도 하고요. 그다음에 R&D 콜라보레이션의 우리 한국의 실상을 잠깐 드려보겠습니다. 어쩌면 저는 여러분을 좀 실망시킬지 몰라요. 여태까지 좋은 면만을 봤으니까 우리가 좀 부족한 면을 볼 때 더 스스로 채찍질을 하고 더 콜라보레이션을 많이 만들 수 있을 것 같습니다. 세계의 탑 10 파마슈티컬 컴퍼니의 1년 R&D 예산이 적게는 7조에서 13조입니다. 한국의 경우는 제가 탑 10을 뽑아봤는데요. 5억에서 15억 선입니다. 굉장히 많죠. 사이즈에 비하면. 그리고 그 퍼센티지로 보면 한국도 이제는 거의 이제 2자릿수의 R&D를 이제 하기 시작했고요. 그리고 한국 국내에서도 자꾸만 오픈 이노베이션이 일어나서 기술의 라이센스 인 앤 아웃, 스타트업끼리 또 그 같은 그 캔디데이트를 갖추고 다른 세라퓨틱에서 개발할 수 있는 그런 오픈 이노베이션. 이런 것들은 사실 기계가 하고 IA가 하는 게 아닙니다. 사람이 하는 거예요. 여러분들께서 하시는 거기 때문에 사람들이 먼저 오픈 이노베이티브한 마음을 가지고 열고 같이 나갈 수 있는 거, 내가 조금 손해보고 내가 조금 늦게 가더라도 큰 골을 위해서 갈 수 있는 그런 방향을 찾아야 됩니다. 마지막으로 오픈 이노베이션은 피해야 할 수 있는 게 아니에요. 이제는 우리가 이거와 같이 가야 이 팬데믹 상황도 이겨내고 팬데믹 후의 우리 한국, 우리나라가 좀 더 발전돼서 성장하는 나라가 될 거라고 믿습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. 지금부터는 제가 이제 그 진행은 한국말로 하고 그 스피커분들이 외국분들이기 때문에 질문은 제가 외국분들한테는 영어로 드리는 걸로 이렇게 진행을 하도록 그렇게 하겠습니다. 혹시 패널분들 그 스피커분들한테 질문 있으세요? 예, 없으시면 제가 I have several questions to the speakers. My question to the Dr. Arabanes is, when you're looking back your experience, what is the pros and cons of the open innovation, and what are the most important key success factors of open innovation?
So I heard part of your question. I'm just clarifying. Was that a question for me?
Yes.
Okay.
What are the pros and cons of the open innovation, and what is the most important success factor of the open innovation? That is my question.
Great. Yeah, I think it's worth thinking historically, perhaps, why people didn't do open innovation in the past, right? And one was, it's in some ways it can add complexity to a business arrangement, right? If there's multiple partners involved, right, you have to have more complex contracts of how you'll share IP, how you'll participate in the business together. And so I think these are some of the downsides, right, is that it can make getting a project started harder, and some complexities down the road. I think the good thing is that as companies that embrace this, they get very good at this. So they develop kind of master agreements, templates, approaches to open innovation, which make it smoother. So every single new project isn't a new thing where you have to kind of reinvent how you're going to work with a new company. You have a methodology for doing this. And then you get the benefit of open innovation, which is, you decrease your risk. You get access to technologies and strengths that your organization doesn't necessarily have. You get opportunities to do markets. You can share in the investment, and you don't have to take on the full burden. So the benefits are immense. I think the key is learning how to do it in a very flexible and facile way, which historically was more difficult. Maybe last thing is I think it depends on the type of project, right? If it's a project where the benefits are clear and it's really you need both strengths of both organizations or an organization and a country, then it's very motivating.
Okay, thank you very much. My question to Ms. Zhang is, I was able to understand the Janssen open innovation so far from your presentation. Then would it be possible to share the Janssen's plan or directions for open innovation in Korea in the near future?
Thank you. I think there is only one direction, that's to continue open innovation. I think there is no doubt that we find good, interesting ideas, and I believe that we are going to find more. The future plan is about continue to connect and to make Korea stronger in the global stage. But having that in the mind, it also asks us to sometimes when we make decisions in our part of the world, we need to realize that if you take a long-term view or if you take a global view, some decisions might be different. If you take a local view, a country view, or if you take a short-term view. I think that's a general observation, not only for innovation, but also for business. So I would only say that for J&J, we will continue, and we look forward to the government and the industry, other players, associations, just to make innovation part of the life and make a culture of risk-taking, but also risk-rewarding. I think many people want to take risk, but then ultimately, how can a place become a biohub? It's also coming to the question is risk-taking being adequately rewarded? From this part, I certainly think there are more we can do with partners and with government and with industry associations.
And another question to Janssen is, Janssen has been engaged in various open innovation activities so far. Was there any difficulties in collaboration and open innovation with domestic companies as a foreign company?
I wouldn't label people just because they are domestic company or they are multinational company. I think I wouldn't say that. But I certainly think that different companies, as I mentioned, if you operate in one country, and versus if you have a plan to be part of a global, like a global presence, you need to be carefully planning. So I think it's not about difficulty. It is about how we make adjustment. So yes, there are difficulty in every part, whether it's multinational, whether it's local. The difficulty, as I mentioned, is about funds. How can you make sure that your funds are continuously coming over to you because people who invest in it see the long-term value of risk-taking, and they are willing to give you the funds. And second is about people. While Korea has a good foundation about percentage of the science and percentage of the density of the scientists, we still look for various type of people in their domain knowledge, but also we look for people who has global perspective. Because you need to marry the two. You need domain experts. You also need people who has a global perspective. So I think it's harder. Sometimes you find either or. The difficulty is how can you find the right person at the right time and empower them to pioneer many of the experiments we want them to do. So I think I would less classify as a multinational working with domestic. I think we have one goal is to make sure that we advance it, we find the right people, and we work to understand different mindset, because local versus global and long-term versus short-term, it's always going to be debatable depending on which side you're on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zhang. And my question to Mr. Paris is, how do you position Korean market in the global bioindustry landscape? What's our key competitive edge, or is there any gap we should catch up? That is my first question.
Thank you. You will not be surprised if I answer that Korea is very important to us, but it is actually true as well. In fact, our Korean market is, on a country basis, our third largest market globally, which is a surprising fact to many, but not to us. The clear advantages that Korea has to offer in terms of its clear government support, the presence of companies with a global scale and vision. The infrastructure that has been built in this country is some of the best globally from a quality, scale and productivity standpoint. The access to talent, the quality of the academic institutions and science is up there with the best. So it has a lot of factors for us, which is why we have invested in Innovation Center here. And why we have a strong presence also from a commercial standpoint. I think if we think about what's next, what challenges do we still see? I think we have to. I would like to come back to what Ms. Zhang said around rewarding risk. So creating a vibrant ecosystem in which biotech thrives is a system in which there's both patience. Because some of these investments will take time to be rewarded, but also ensure we motivate people to take risk and accept that they fail. An essential part of a vibrant system is an ecosystem in which failure is accepted and in which we continue to seed investment, money, resources, and regulatory support to ensure that the entrepreneurs in this environment do not get discouraged. And I think there's some further opportunity to advance there. The final point I would make from a regulatory standpoint. The real innovation is happening these days in what we call the zoo of therapies. There's so many new therapies emerging, new modalities that have not been properly explored. And I must say the Korean biotech community is making nice efforts to be part of that, but needs to accelerate and be supported by a regulatory environment that is open to consider new therapies, that is open to consider new technology to be acceptable as a part of this innovation process, including artificial intelligence, which has some privacy concerns, etc. But I would encourage that environment to be looked at as part of a supporting mechanism for open innovation in this country.
Sorry to interrupt your sequence, but I would like to add a couple more comments on the Francis talk and answer to the moderator. And I do believe we need a policy plan to recognize the value of the innovation. Pharma industry is really highly a risk business, as you know. So without having any reward or understanding and recognize value of innovation, and most of us will easily lose our driving force to move forward and using new technology. And the second part is regulation. And as Francis mentioned, regulation also need innovation to catch up the speed of technology in advancement. So all the stakeholders, not only pharma company or startup or venture companies, but also the regulators and government and even patients, and willing to take a risk and be innovative. I think that innovation is not only for the certain group of people's possession. It is everybody's. So we can grow and we can advance through the innovation. So I really encourage everyone who is in this room and also online to join innovation. Innovation is not hard, not difficult. You can do it, and we can do it together. Thank you.
시간이 많지 않은 관계로 혹시 플로어 질문 가능한가요? 예. 플로어에서 혹시 꼭 질문을 하시겠다고 하신 분 몇 분 모셔서 질문을 듣도록 하겠습니다. 손 들어주시면 마이크를 제공을 해드릴 것 같습니다. 반드시 이 주제하고 관련된 사항은 아니더라도 뭐 혹시 정부에 대해서 굉장히 불만이 좀 많으시겠지만 혹시 이번 기회에 조금 뭐 요청을 하시고 싶은 부분이 있으시달지 이런 부분이 있으시면 그 부분도 뭐 말씀을 해주시면 될 것 같습니다. 예.
Hello. This question to Dr. Van Paris. I have a question about your collaborations with the University of Queensland and Takara Bio. Could you elaborate more on the spike protein targeted vaccine and the plasmid vaccine for COVID-19?
Sure. First example with the University of Queensland, essentially, this is a group of academics that developed a vaccine candidate, but was struggling to develop a manufacturing method for that vaccine. So we've been working with them to develop a customized manufacturing process to support that clinical trial material. We manufactured the phase 1 clinical trial material and then helped them develop the process for further scale-up. You may have read in the press, however, that, and I mentioned failure is an option, right? So this vaccine actually failed last week as it yielded false positive results in a HIV diagnostic test, which is obviously an undesirable effect of the vaccine. It was still the right efficacy, the right safety. However, did it have a side effect that was non-acceptable? Takara Bio is a firm in Japan. This was a collaboration both with Osaka University, ANGES, and Takara Bio, so we were the fourth player in that partnership. We drove innovation there in terms of driving up the productivity of the manufacturing process, as well as increasing the speed to market. As part of that, we have helped them to expand their hardware facility to ensure they have sufficient capacity for the manufacturing of that Osaka University developed vaccine for the Japanese population primarily.
예, 저는 메드트로닉에서 근무하는 이상수라고 합니다. 제가 프란시스 대표님께 질문을 하나 드리고 싶습니다. 아무래도 지금 국내에서 많은 PPP, 퍼블릭 프라이빗 파트너십을 많이 진행하시는 걸로 이해를 해서 좀 한국 기업이나 정부에 좀 또 다른 통찰력이 있지 않을까 이런 기대를 하면서 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 저도 이 업계에서 한 27년 정도 일을 해보면서 과거보다 많은 혁신을 이루었다고 생각합니다. 근데 다만 좀 한 가지 좀 아쉬운 것은 혁신을, 이노베이션을 대하는 자세에서 외국의 어떤 정부와 어떤 이해 당사자와 국내에서 바라보는 혁신에 대해서 대하는 정책적인 어떤 어프로치가 좀 다르다는 느낌을 들어서 좀 아쉬움이 있어서 좀 말씀드리고자 싶습니다. 해외에 보게 되면 어떤 혁신 기술을 일단 인정을 하고 그거를 지원하기 위한 시스템이나 어떤 프로그램을 보게 되면 일단 헬스 커버리지를 일단 주고서 근거 창출을 위한 시간을 많이 줍니다. 뭐 커버리지 위드 에비던스 디벨롭먼트 이런 이름으로. 그 얘기는 뭐냐면은 일단 초창기니까 안전성 유효성에 대한 데이터가 좀 부족하더라도 일단은 근거 창출할 시간을 주고 그 기간 동안 어떤 비급여가 아니라 뭐 커버리지 급여를 통해서 어떤 좀 이노베이션 액세서빌리티를 환자에게 좀 주는 시스템을 가고 있는데 우리나라는 뭐 재정적인 여건이 이런 것도 있어서 그런지 모르겠지만 상대적으로 혁신에 대한 제품을 비급여나 선별급여나 예비급여나 이런 환자 본인 부담금을 아주 높게 한 80% 90%를 주고서 보통 그런 어떤 이노베이션 부담을 환자한테 많이 시키는 그런 식으로 가서 좀 우리나라도 좀 그런 패턴을 좀 바꿔야 되지 않을까 그런 생각을 좀 많이 해봅니다. 예를 들면 이노베이션이 궁극적으로 혜택이 누구한테 간가를 생각을 해봤을 때는 좀 더 환자나 어떤 케어기버나 헬스케어 프로페셔널한테 좀 접근을 많이 강화시켜서 전반적인 그 프레임워크를 많이 개선시키는 가야 되는데 아무래도 비급여 쪽으로 넘어가게 되면 다른 나라 정부나 기관 어떤 사회에 비교를 해봤을 때 우리나라 환자들이나 어떤 이해당사자는 좀 더 형평성 있는 접근성이 많이 저하되지 않는가 이런 생각이 들어서 좀 고견을 여쭙고 싶습니다. 예. 감사합니다.
You make some very good points, and I'm not entirely sure I'm perfectly positioned to answer all of them. What I would say is that as I think about innovation, we all and every party needs to play to its strength. And so in the challenge that we have with reimbursement, the access and to the quality of the therapy, we can help by, where possible, drive down the production cost, drive and help companies bring productivity to their manufacturing process. I think the other piece is, as a global company, again, we don't see ourselves as a foreign company in Korea. We see ourselves as a global company which is partnering here. We hope to play a role as bringing stakeholders together, including investors, including members of the biotech community, governmental organizations, and ensuring that there is a commonly understanding of their challenges, and so that as a network participant, we can bring people together to talk about these challenges and ensure that we all do our part in terms of what we can contribute to that problem. Again, I think the theme of today is not just innovation, it's collaboration. And a collaboration is only successful if the participating parties have a strength to contribute. And I believe in the problem you describe, we also should focus on the strengths that we can contribute. We are not a regulator. We can support to address the challenges that a regulator may see, and we are very committed to do so. However, in the end, we're going to have to do this together as a participant, as a network of stakeholders.
예, 한 분만 더 모시도록 하겠습니다. 맨 뒤에 분. 예.
Hello, my name is Hyunpyo Park from MedLife Korea. I just want to ask a casual question to Mr. Dr. Song. 한국말로 질문하겠습니다. 그 백신에 대해서 그 며칠 전에 기사를 쓰셨는데 그 3, 4주 사이에 2번을 맞아야 효과가 있을 거라는 기사를 쓰신 걸로 알고 있습니다. 근데 궁금한 점은 그냥 아주 일반적으로 그냥 국민으로서 궁금한 건데요. 그러면 백신이 이제 우리나라에 들어오는 기간이 좀 그 이야기가 잘 되고 있는지와 두 번째는 한 달 안에 2번을 맞을 수 있는 물량이 확보가 될 건지 이게 정확한 해답을 바라는 건 아니지만 불입하게라도 어떻게 진행되고 있는지 상황이 궁금해서 질문 드려봅니다.
네, 제가 정부 관계자는 아니기 때문에 정확한 답은 드릴 수는 없고요. 일단 내년 1분기에도 아마 가능한 백신은 있는 것으로 알고 있는데 사실은 뭐 그게 어떤 백신인지 그리고 뭐 물량 얼마나 되는지는 제가 말씀은 드릴 수는 없고요. 하지만 아마 2분기 정도에는 아마 백신들이 좀 본격적으로 공급이 되지 않을까 싶습니다. 그리고 지금 모더나하고 파이저가 이제 긴급 사용 승인을 거의 이제 하나는 받았고 거의 하나 또 하나 받는 상황인데요. 이 두 개 외에도 지금 전 세계를 좀 많이 커버하기 위해서는 훨씬 더 많은 지금 백신이 필요한 상황이고, 그리고 또 그에 맞춰서 지금 좋은 백신들이 또 임상에서 좋은 결과들을 보여주고 있기 때문에 아마 그런 것까지 같이 생각한다면 아마 2분기 정도에는 또 어느 정도 공급이 되고, 그리고 또 아마 대부분의 백신들은 3분기 정도 돼야 아마 많은 공급이 또 되지 않을까 싶습니다.
예, 아마 저희한테 주어진 시간 자체가 이제 거의 다 된 것 같아가지고 오늘 제가 조금 나왔던 얘기를 좀 종합을 해드리면, 결국 오픈 이노베이션 자체가 저희가 신약을 개발하는 데나 아니면 전 인류의 어떤 건강을 증진하는 데 굉장히 필수적인 그런 요소다라는 부분을 저희가 합의를 했던 것 같고요. 특히 이제 그 한국과 미국 기업들의 협력을 통해 가지고 굉장히 가능성이 많은 그런 부분을 엿볼 수가 있었습니다. 그리고 앞으로도 이런 분야가 꾸준하게 협력을 해나가는 게 중요하다라는 사실을 확인했고, 마지막으로 이 과정에서 결국 정부의 역할 자체가 굉장히 또 중요하다라는 점도 부각됐다라는 점을 말씀드리고 싶습니다. 그래서 이제 제 끝마치면서 I'd like to thank AMCHAM and all the speakers and panelists and participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our panel for the great discussion.